Hey guys, welcome back to the channel here today. So we're doing about a 2-week review here of the Chevy Volt that I purchased. Now, at the time of this video coming out, probably 3 weeks ago, but I've only been driving it for 2 weeks as in this video. So today I want to touch on some things here as we're going to the shop. Once we get to the shop, we'll do just a quick tour around the vehicle. But 2-week review. I'm very, very happy with this vehicle, and so is Alexa. So we decided to buy this vehicle in short because there is a 30% tax credit that comes with the purchase of the vehicle. This vehicle was very cheap to begin with. So the purchase price of this vehicle was $75,999 with 67,000 miles and change on it. In that time, we have almost put on 1,000 miles. So in the 2 weeks of me having this, I put on about 500 miles. Now in the 3 weeks, it's a little bit more. So I just want to go over some of the pros and cons of the Chevy Volt. But the first pro, we have not had to put gas in this vehicle yet. That is sweet. So in my calculations, I figured that this vehicle would save us money. So for Alexa, this is a conservative estimate, but for her, it would basically come out as a break even because she doesn't pay for electricity on this vehicle, which is great. I pay the electricity at the house. We split the bills and we're splitting the cost of this vehicle. But since I drive this vehicle 70% of the time and she drives it 30% of the time, I figured I would cut out the electrical costs. Also, with that being said, this gets charged half at home and half at work at my business. So half of that electrical cost is essentially a business expense, which is great. So half of that cost really is just a pre-tax cost that isn't costing me anything really except just the cost to charge the vehicle. So we haven't had to put gas in this vehicle at all. I have barely had to fill up any of vehicles with gas, and neither has she, her Mercedes-Benz or my Ram truck with gas at all over the last 2 weeks. It's great. The only time I've had to put gas in my truck is just to pick up a boat that was maybe 100-mile round trip. So that was it, basically. And I can't, of course, tow with this vehicle. So I'm pretty thoroughly impressed here. And once we get into the routine of things, I'm really curious to see how much gas we are going to save in a whole month's time. It's quite phenomenal, really. I'm very impressed with it. I really am. So that factor for us, it works out great. For me, I could put on 60 miles a day on this thing and not have to worry about gas, essentially, because I plug in at work and then I get to plug in at home. And for her, where she doesn't get to plug in at work on her weekday job, it's okay, because for her it's maybe a 15-mile round trip, and then she gets to go to the gym after work, which is about another, I would say, 12-mile round trip. So this thing gets about 35 miles per charge, 32 to 35, because we like to run the heater, the air conditioner, whatever. So she never has to put in gas so far, which is great. And then, unless, of course, she drives her Mercedes-Benz. So for her, she's driving her car about 3 to 4 days a week, and then this the other times of the week. And that is for me, too. So I drive it 3 to 4 so far, and she drives it 3 to 4. So really, this car is getting used quite a bit, which is great, which is what we bought it for. The next pro of this car, it's completely silent besides the tires. So when I do get new tires for this vehicle, which they're probably at their 75% point of usage, so there's about 25% of life left. So I am going to have to get tires for this eventually, but I'm going to get nicer tires than the Mastercrafts that are on the vehicle. And that should significantly cut road noise down. Otherwise, this car is essentially quiet, which is sweet. Very cool. I like that a lot. It's insulated well. It's grounded. The next pro I want to talk about here is the driving dynamics and the suspension. So 0 to 30 on this car, I timed it, is 3 seconds flat. 0 to 60 on this car is 9 seconds. So the 0 to 30 on this car is very respectable, very acceptable. It's very similar to a car that goes 0 to 60 in 6 to 7 seconds for that 0 to 30 time. But where it dies off is after 30 miles an hour, even in sport mode and even in low. And that brings me to another thing. I have been driving this car in low, because of the regeneration. It regenerates the batteries a little bit more. You maybe get another mile per charge, but that's free energy. And B, I like the one pedal driving experience. Right now, my foot is off the gas, or the pedal, the acceleration pedal, and now the low gear, or I guess the regenerative power of the engine, is bringing me to a stop where I barely need to use my brakes. And for that matter, the brakes will last longer, for sure. Alexa likes to drive in drive because it's just the standard driving. It's like driving a internal combustion vehicle. I like to drive it in low because I like that little bit of kind of uniqueness to it. And the way it stops the vehicle is pretty nice. But anyway, going back to driving dynamics here. 0 to 30, very acceptable. Driving in town, very acceptable. There's nothing wrong with this vehicle in town. Stoplights, it's not going to win you any stoplight races, but it definitely gets the job done, which I appreciate a lot. So next, this car really is quite amazing to drive. It's, for me, this is the lightest vehicle in my fleet. The truck weighs 6,000 pounds or over. The Mercedes-Benz, the GLE AMG, weighs 5,200 pounds. The Challenger and the 300 weigh 41 to 42 to 4,300 pounds. So they're heavy cars. This car weighs about 3,900 pounds. And because it is a battery vehicle, and you do have the generator engine up front, but because it is a battery-powered vehicle, all the weight is low and in back of me. So this car drives excellent. The only thing holding it back right now is the 215 with tires. If it had wider tires, similar to like the Cadillac ELR, then yes, you would be able to get a little bit more traction, wouldn't get that tire spin from a stop, and you would be able to hold the corners a little bit better. But the steering is pretty light. There is no feel to the steering because it is electric, of course, and you can huck this thing around a corner, though. For me, this is a light vehicle, and I can definitely tell it is a lighter vehicle than any of the other vehicles I have, just mainly because of the body roll. There really isn't much body roll to this thing, and there's just enough body roll to, notice when you're at the point of no return, essentially, with a front-wheel drive car. But I have to say, this is definitely one of the more fun vehicles to drive in my fleet, I would say. Even driving, yesterday I drove the GLE AMG for a little bit, and that, even in Sport Plus, has way more body roll than this Evolt does. Now, granted, this is a much shorter vehicle as well, but it is great. And on that subject of suspension, this soaks up the bumps in the road. Again, this isn't as stiff as a suspension as its sibling, the ELR, but it's comfortable. Very, very, very comfortable. It's just got that right balance between sportiness and comfort, and I appreciate that a lot. It's so effortless over bumps. I mean, Chevy is known for having, especially in the recent cars, in having vehicles that drive really well, have awesome suspension, have awesome steering, and the Volt is one of them. I have to say, I'm very thoroughly impressed. If you buy one of these vehicles as your daily driver, you will be too. Now, needless to say, in a normal person's fleet of cars, this would be either a B car or a C car. So this would be your second car or your third car, depending on what you have for vehicles, because this isn't going to scratch your itch of a sports car, that is for sure. But as a daily driver and something that looks good, this is definitely going to do it for you. So another pro I want to touch on here, I like the interface. I like the touchscreen interface. I like the interface in front of me, the LCD display. This is a base model, so of course the cons are coming on the base model, but that is to be expected. The interface here is super nice. Actually, I'm going to show that to you because my thing just fell. So here we go with the touchscreen interface here. It's very similar to any sort of Chevy MyLink system of its time. This is a 2013, and there is the interactive display in front of you that shows your speed, everything like that. I like that in a base model vehicle. As you can see, cloth seats, some harder plastics here. I like that in a base model vehicle, you still get the same infotainment system as you do in the highest trim, as in the Premier trim of this vehicle. And yes, this did take a little bit to get used to with all the buttons, but I have to say, in a world with no buttons today, I am glad that they gave us buttons. The only problem is there's no button to get to the radio, so that kind of sucks. But otherwise, this interface is great. It looks really good, and so does this interface here. It's actually pretty interactive for 2013, and I do appreciate that. If it will zoom in. Now you can see I have been bucking the wind, and I've not been getting the greatest miles per charge here, because I have been bucking a straight 25 to 30 mile an hour south wind, and that is pretty much my commute, is north to south or south to north. But overall, I'm very impressed with the vehicle here in its base model trim. Some cons, I guess, of the vehicle. This steering wheel sucks in this vinyl kind of rhino injection molded steering wheel trim. They should have just used the leather trim. I personally like the seats. They're a little stiff, but that's okay for a person like me who is quite small. Yeah, I wish they had more bolstering. Now the Volt I tried out that did have the leather trim, those seats were excellent. I would definitely buy those if I were to get another Volt. But you know, there are hard plastics in here, but for a daily driver, I guess for me, it doesn't bother me. For the price I paid for it, at the end of the year, of course, I get a 30% tax credit on this Volt. So the cost of the car is really only a hair over $5,000. You can't beat that in the Chevy Volt. Here we got some turkeys. Wowee. All right, so we're gonna hop out. We're almost to the shop. We're gonna hop out and just do a quick exterior look. So taking a look at the exterior of the Volt here, you can see it's finished in this, it's called silver topaz, but I call this like an ice blue. And for 2013, it does look really good. So some things I need to do to it here is just touch up some of this gray coloring there. It just doesn't look the best, but overall, you know, it's actually a very good looking vehicle compared even to the Gen 2 Volt. Only the ELR looks better in my opinion, but everything is held up really well. Of course, no rust on this vehicle in particular, but it's pretty aerodynamic, I would say. Everything looks really good. Even the front bumper is held up pretty well over the 68,000 miles essentially. And here is the plug-in that I talked about, how easy it is just to plug in at work. And there you go. Now it's charging. I just have it charged on the lowest charge setting because unless we're in a hurry, there's really no reason to charge on the 12 amp instead of the 8 amp. I just charge on the 8 amp because I'm here for most of the day, so it charges enough on that. But looking at the back here, this is a hatchback design. But actually, let's just hold on to the back. Everything looks really good. The rear light on the bottom, the backup light though, is an incandescent bulb, so it isn't the brightest at night. But the Volt logo looks really good. And there's a ton of room in this hatch. You could put down these rear seats and essentially have a mid-size SUV type room, small to mid-size, compact to mid-size SUV room back here. And truth be told, it doesn't really even look like a hatchback. You know, it looks like the trunk lifts up, but I like it. I really do. I'm not a hatchback guy, but this definitely looks good. Really, the only con I have, of course, these rims would look better blacked out, but in 2013, that really wasn't the theme. I do actually like the piano black along the side of the vehicle, and on the back, it kind of contrasts really well with this light blue color here, this ice blue. It contrasts excellent, really. And really, the only con I have about the exterior is the air dam up front. This kind of like soft plastic, the air dam is so low, maybe 3 inches from the ground, that you have to really be careful with curbs. Now, I know they fix that in the newer iterations of the Volt, but it's just a really good looking car. I like the dimensions, and the exterior is held up very well. Wipers are good. I mean, really everything. You don't get power folding mirrors, which would be nice. It would be nice to have power folding mirrors, but again, not a big thing in 2013. But you could see there's more than enough space here to hold your stuff in the front and in the back. Actually, I'll sit back here right now just to show you. We never take anybody on trips, of course, but there's definitely no sort of claustrophobic feeling in the rear at all. And this kind of 4-seat design, now that's hard plastic, so that takes away from it, but this 4-seat design is very reminiscent of like a Porsche Panamera. Of course, this is no Porsche Panamera, but it's kind of unique. It's kind of cool. For somebody like me who doesn't tow anybody or haul anybody, or if you do, it's basically only your elderly parents, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. And the leather seats are only that much more comfortable. So, and of course, this is here because of the battery pack. But overall, I really don't have any complaints about this vehicle for what it is. If you understand what it is going into it, then this vehicle is definitely for you. But there we go, guys. That's a 2-week review here of the Chevy Volt. If you're interested, or if you have any questions, reach out in the comments here. Oh, another thing, passive entry in all 4 doors. Passive entry and lock. You really can't beat it. The only thing you don't get is a sunroof. So I just love the car. I can't say enough good about the vehicle. All right, guys, that's it for this review here. Like and subscribe. We'll see you in another video.